On Halloween night, while the town of Willow Creek celebrated, there was one house no one dared approach. The old mansion, sitting abandoned at the edge of the street, was rumored to be home to something far more sinister than ghosts, something older, something darker. The Hollow Man. Lily had heard the stories many times before. The legend of the Hollow Man, a cursed figure, hollowed out by grief and rage after losing his family in a fire. Since then, he was said to wander the mansion, waiting for anyone foolish enough to enter. She didn't believe it, not really. Jack, however, scoffs, trying to act brave, though his eyes dart nervously toward the house. Jack was skeptical. He had always brushed off the town's old ghost stories. Tonight, though, as he stood before the mansion, the air felt colder, heavier, and an uneasy chill crept up his spine. But he wouldn't back down. With a grin, he turns to the others and says, "I'll knock. What's the worst that could happen?" The door swung open, as if welcoming him. But inside, there was only darkness. A darkness so deep it seemed to swallow the light around it. Lily and Emma call out to him, but Jack, grinning despite the growing sense of dread, steps across the threshold. The door slams shut behind him with a deafening bang, locking him inside. With a sound like the final nail in a coffin, the door shut behind Jack, cutting him off from his friends. Lily and Emma rushed to the door, pounding on it in a panic, but no sound came from within. Jack felt a presence in the air, something watching him from the shadows, just out of sight. He tried to tell himself it was all in his head, but the further he walked, the stronger the feeling became. At the end of the hallway, a door creaks open slowly. Jack freezes, staring at the darkness beyond. Then, a faint, raspy whisper echoes from the shadows. The Hollow Man, whispering. "You shouldn't have come here." Jack's breath catches in his throat. His heart races as he backs away, but the whisper grows louder, and the shadows seem to stretch toward him. Suddenly, a tall, gaunt figure emerges from the darkness, a man with hollow, glowing eyes and a face twisted in sorrow and rage. The Hollow Man had appeared, his empty eyes glowing in the darkness. His body, thin and frail, seemed to flicker as though caught between worlds, his voice a low whisper carried by the wind. Lily and Emma found themselves in the mansion's cold, empty halls. The darkness clung to the walls, and shadows seemed to move where the light should have been still. They called for Jack, but the only response was the sound of their own breathing. They hear Jack's voice down the hall and rush toward it, but when they find him, something is terribly wrong. He stands facing the wall, completely still. His eyes are wide and empty, his face pale. When they found him, Jack was no longer himself. His eyes, once full of life, were now hollow. His body, rigid and cold. It was as if the mansion had drained the life from him, leaving only a shell behind. The Hollow Man stepped from the shadows, his gaze fixed on them. There was no escape now. The mansion was his domain, and those who entered became part of it, forever. Lily and Emma scream, but their voices are swallowed by the darkness. The Hollow Man raises his hand, and the shadows around them begin to swirl, pulling them into the abyss. And so the Hollow Man waits, in the darkness of his mansion. For on Halloween night, when the veil between worlds is thin, those who enter his home are never seen again.